You know that feeling, right? A brilliant idea just flashes into your mind, it feels huge, it feels full of potential, and then it just sits there. It never actually leaves the drawing board. Well, today, we're going to break down a really powerful system for closing that gap, for taking those abstract dreams and turning them into something you can actually build, own, and live.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start by really defining a problem I think every creator faces. Then we'll introduce this mental model called the Reality Engine to solve it. From there, we'll get into the practical steps, tackle the big money question, yep, we have to talk about that, see how it all worked for a real company, and then wrap up with a little experiment you can literally start today.
So first things first, let's talk about this thing called the dreamer's dilemma. It's that constant, nagging tension between having a huge vision and the really hard reality of actually doing something about it.
And this quote from our source material it absolutely nails it. It feels like the world is split into these two camps, right? You've got the dreamers who are full of ideas but never build a thing, and then you have the builders who are so busy building they've forgotten why they started dreaming in the first place. Our whole goal here is to be the bridge, to be both.
The source uses this fantastic metaphor for why this happens. See, as kids, we're all creative generators. We're just constantly churning out new ideas. But then adulthood hits, and it often turns us into batteries, stuck in this loop where we just discharge our energy on command, for bills, for our jobs, for someone else's vision. Sound familiar? And this slide just lays it out so clearly. Look at the two paths. On the left, you've got that draining battery loop, work, pay, worry, and repeat. It's exhausting. But on the right, that's the alternative we're shooting for, a success loop. It starts with a dream. Then you tighten it, you test it, and finally, you build and own it. So let's dig into exactly how to make that leap.
So how do we get from that battery loop to the success loop? Well, it all starts with a new way of thinking. The source calls it the Reality Engine, and it's a system designed to make creation a deliberate process, not just some random stroke of luck.
Now, this engine has three main parts. The first one is creating what's called your dream universe. This is basically a mental safe space. It's where you give yourself permission to imagine again without any judgment, to explore all the what-ifs before you get totally bogged down by the hows.
Okay, from that universe, you then step through the dream portal. Think of this as the interface where your abstract idea starts to meet some actual structure. It's the doorway that takes your raw, passionate idea and begins translating it into something, well, tangible.
And finally, you land in the dream world. Now, this might be the most powerful part of the whole engine. It's essentially a simulation, a place where you can test, refine, and visualize your idea. You can walk through the plan, spot the flaws, and get that crystal clarity before you've spent a single dollar. Like the source says, this is where regret can die early. I love that.
And this really reframes the entire process, doesn't it? This whole engine, it isn't about escaping reality. It's a foundational, super practical step. Every great company, every amazing bridge, it first existed as a shared idea. So dreaming in this model is actually pre-engineering.
Okay, so you've got this pre-engineered dream, but how do you make it actually land in the real world? This brings us to the next critical step in the process, a concept the source calls tightening.
You know, we're always called to dream bigger, but the source argues that's not the problem at all. A loose, foggy imagination just kind of drifts away. Real progress, it says, comes from a tightened imagination, one that's been put through a compression chamber of questions and constraints until it becomes something dense, sharp, and real.
Which, of course, raises the big question. What does that even mean? What are the actual practical steps you can take to move an idea from being all foggy to being really, really focused?
And here it is. This is the operational loop that puts it all together. It's such a clear, repeatable sequence. You start with the dream. Then you tighten it with words and sketches and questions. Next, you test it with small, low-stakes experiments. You build the version that's proven to work. And finally, you own the result. That's the Reality Engine in action.
Of course, every great dream, sooner or later, runs into a wall. And that wall, more often than not, is money. This is that moment where you have to temporarily shift your focus from being a builder to being a seller.
To solve for this, the source has this brilliant idea of a survival offer. And this is so important. This is not your grand vision. It's not the final cathedral. It's a simple, useful, easy-to-understand product or service you can sell right now to generate the cash flow you need to keep the bigger dream alive. Think of it like the food cart that funds the entire project.
Now, the best part is that this system isn't just a bunch of cool theories. The source material gives us a fantastic real-world example of this engine at work.
a company called the All-American Network.
So, their abstract dream was to celebrate American talent and community pride. They tightened that big dream into a real media platform. They produce live events, digital shows. They give everyday people a national stage. It's a perfect example of a dream being made completely tangible.
And the results? They're real. The network has already given a platform to over 5,000 contestants. That's not just a number. That's 5,000 dreams getting a spotlight. This isn't just an idea. It's a system that produces measurable, real-world outcomes. It proves the model actually works.
So what's the big takeaway here? The goal isn't just to leave you feeling inspired, it's to leave you feeling equipped. It's about shifting your mindset from being a passive dreamer to being an active scientist, someone who runs small, controlled experiments on their own vision.
Here's the daily protocol. This is what you use to replace that battery loop we talked about at the beginning. It's so simple and repeatable. Each day, you select one small piece of your dream, you tighten it into a testable hypothesis, you run a tiny experiment, you look at the real-world results without ego, and then you decide what to do next. This is how you build real momentum.
And that brings it all right back to you. This isn't about building the entire cathedral tomorrow. It's about laying a single, well-placed brick today. It's about finding one small, testable piece of your vision and just putting it out into the world. So the only question left really is, what small experiment will you run?